What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Transcendence podcast. I'm G.O.D.
And I'm Ray.
And we're your hosts. Take a journey with us into the realms of some of humanity's most inner thoughts and theories about what lies before us and beyond the other side. Take a step back with us from the day-to-day heavy burdens of this constant evolving life. From awakening the collective, astrology, the spiritual divine, holistic health, shamanism, and quantum theory, to the frequencies and vibrations of our universe, history, religion, numerology, and so much more.
We spend countless hours researching to bring you the breakdown of information from some of the greatest minds in these fields and even our own experiences. We're here to challenge your thoughts so that you can reshape your own minds and beliefs into ones that better serve you.
We hope you enjoy the discussions about the supernatural and the ancient knowledge that we have become so fond of, and we wish to share with you so that it may also help you on your quest in this human experience we're living. Let the transcendence begin. Godspeed and share on.
Like and subscribe to the Daily Transcendence on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. To show support for the show, we ask you to join us on all social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Patreon, and YouTube. There you can find more content, updates on new episodes, and more personal interactions from both Gio and I. We want to hear from you all and connect, so message us or email us at thedailytranscendence@gmail.com. As always, we entirely appreciate your support in allowing us to bring you this transmission. So what are we at, episode 16?
16, yes.
Wow.
Kind of scrapped our original 16.
We did.
Very, very good reason, though. And I feel like that's important to kind of reiterate why within ourselves, why we even did that. There was a kind of like a revelation that we came to.
Yeah, well, we don't want to just sit around and be lecturers or teachers. We really started this podcast to also really express our perspective and where we were at in our journey, and then have it affect other people because it has affected us in such a way. I really think that it's time to not be so afraid of talking about certain things and fearing that maybe you'll be outcasted or smited, because a lot of where I stand with my belief systems is I've dove real deep into metaphysics and multiple religions, and yet I grew up in a Catholic and Christian family. So a lot of what presses my buttons about all this stuff is discussing that. It's discussing, because we had started the podcast with symbols and all that. Why did we do that? Like if we go back to why we even started the podcast, we started the first few episodes with explaining what symbols are and what they really do for us and how we use them as tools and how we use them for the mind to understand deeper concepts. When you understand religious and metaphysical texts, you realize that most of it's talking about nature, the body and the mind, and you and me. We're going to stop talking right now about the aliens for a little while. We love that story. We want it. That's a deep one, and we're very excited to eventually discuss and go into that when the time's right. But we don't think the time's right. Yeah. I think it's time to bring up other things.
I just feel like it starts distracting from the original purpose, and even for our own self-expression. I feel like it might, not that it takes away from it, but it overcoats it a little bit. Because like you were saying, like we got into a lot of that because a lot of these deeper hidden truths and meanings, and all of them are great to understand for being able to create some sort of releasing of any old paradigms or dogmatic beliefs and stuff, to be able to reshape your mind. Like we say, reshape your mind of beliefs into one that better serves you. But it's like, okay, we've done a lot of that. There's still more to do, obviously. But, we started feeling that on an applicable sense that maybe we were missing certain things. We're missing that factor in what we're saying sometimes. With going into a lot of these details and stories, because it's easy to gloss over the application. And we want to make that more clear, on more so in the sense that's going to be relevant to ourselves and relevant to the listener, and how to really start honing in on that direction of where all this stuff really takes flight in our life.
Yeah, well, let's go directly to the heart here. And it's, that powerful word of conspiracy has ruined a lot of discussions and a lot of topics, because then once you start talking about something, people reject it because it's conspiracy, a word invented in the 60s by the CIA to, and it worked out as planned. Like if you mention something that's against the mainstream narrative, that you start sounding like you're a crazy person. And I know a lot of you guys out there just watched the Kong and Godzilla movie, and you have one of the main characters, the guy who's like the conspiracy theorist on the podcast. And, it's funny because I thought of us when the guy starts the Truth podcast or whatever. And it's all about, how the Titans, like all the government and this corporation is taking over and trying to make, he's making it a conspiracy that they're working on some deeper things against the people. And they have this deeper project, and it goes deep. And it's been something for me that it brings like an intuitive comfort, and I don't know what that is, but when I know that I'm being lied to, and when I know that something is up, and I think at this point we all know with the state of the world that we are being lied to, and by who or by what we don't know yet, and it goes back to why we wanted to talk about the Anunnaki and the aliens, because it's like we were technically by the mainstream lied to that how we evolved. And we were trying to discover the facts, and that's a conspiracy alone, because if we change our whole understanding of our background and where we came from and the evolution of humanity, and it doesn't work the way the mainstream tells us, well, then that means that there's a reason to be hiding that, and that for me, going into those topics is because I am a truth seeker. I like to, I'm big on puzzles. I love to talk and discuss it. And to think that we were made by an alien race, because that's where that went, that whole thing. And, eventually we'll continue on the topic. It's just it's not the time, because there's so many other things to talk about. But, that will affect the so-called paradigms we have, that will affect the way you think, because if we didn't evolve from apes completely, or if we didn't, if there's proof that our genetics are tampered with from the beginning, and that you have ancient writings and topics and all that stuff, and they're all embedded on cuneiform tablets, clay tablets, and things just don't, they don't meld together in the way that we were told. It's time to ask questions. But really, what we want to get at is what's relevant to us today, and it goes back into I think relationships, religions, our belief in God, our belief in our government, and
purpose in society. All those things.
Yeah. Well, purpose in society. I think a lot of people right now walk around purposelessly. Like they got caught up in the mainstream narrative of being involved with the group, thinking that we're all helping each other out by, getting on board with discussing what group of people should run our country and the world, and the state of our country that we live in is obviously insane right now.
Yeah. Our country is also just a small fraction of the world when you think about it too. It's we get so, I think all Americans, there's a lot of us that we get so focused on ourselves as a nation as well, to the point that we forget about everybody else. We forget about other countries. Yeah, we may sometimes bring it up because it comes up in the news about something, but we forget about the fact that there's other countries, there's other states of being, there's other people around the world that are having either similar or different crises in their life, or other types of understanding of life. And there's a lot of times that we communicate amongst each other, whether it's your neighbors or your friends or your family, or, connecting with other people around the country. But I feel like there's a lack in connection with people outside of our country too. And to see what they're going on, what's their state of their country, and what kind of things are they dealing with, the stuff that goes beyond political, political things. There's ways of life that are different, and there is a way of being able to understand why that is.
America got caught up in the drama, and I think we were kind of raised that way.
Yeah,
and
we
that's
always
what
wanted
you're
to
saying.
meddle in other people's businesses, but now it's like
this isn't what I'm saying isn't like a way to meddle in other countries' businesses and stuff like that. It's about to understand on a human level of, you know, what everybody else is experiencing, you know, outside of ourselves, outside of, you know, the country, the United States. Like, you know, we get so hung up on thinking that we're the greatest country in the world, and we think that, but we have fucking more problems than a lot of people do, like a lot of other countries and stuff too. You know, no, we're no better, no holier than thou than other countries. You know, we're also a very young nation. There's way more established countries and way more established nations out there. And, you know, yes, there's things that people can learn from our, you know, ways of being, and there's also things that we can learn as well. Yeah,
I think we immediately start giving off a vibe that we know what we need to know already. You know,
we think we know what everybody else needs too.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, the world police. You know, It's funny, that whole Team America movie. You know, it's kind of was mocking the fact that, you know, we like to kind of go be the saviors of everybody else, but yet can't save ourselves. And that actually plays in as like a metaphor for what we do in our own personal lives, I feel like. You know, we talk about being unselfish and being aware of other people and being aware of other countries in the world, and us all being human beings, regardless of the color, the religion, the sexual orientation. It doesn't matter. Like, let's just be simple about it. It's not as difficult as people make it. You know, we're human, they're human. That's it. And the thing is if we can't help ourselves and have our own personal mission and have our own personal goals and know who we really are at the core, and we're not happy, how is it that we're going to affect the rest of the world? So before we try and jump in and be the world police and go into this, you know, of what we're saying with being, it's about being conscious of other people and the fact that, you know, to understand the state of the world, that everyone is going through something. Yes. But then how do you solve that? Well, most people go, oh, well, we go help them, right? No, you establish your own grounds first, and not selfishly, in a sense where, yes, there is a healthy selfishness where you allow yourself to take care of yourself and nurture yourself and get in a good state of vibration. And that's important, because then you'll start manifesting and creating the life it is that you want and that you need to stay high. But vibrations, we've learned, is they're infectious. So if you're going to go try and save the world while you're in misery, you're only gonna spread misery.
You have to create a healthy model, you know, a healthy model for yourself, and then in turn for your immediate environment, and then it can outbranch from there. But, you know, that takes trial and error on its own, you know, within your own experiences and stuff like that. But yeah, there's definitely this weirdness that comes around us wanting to constantly identify or have or find our identity within certain structures that exist already. And I think that also takes us away from being able to find the true identity of ourselves. Not saying that we don't know who we are, but I think also we lack the understanding of understanding our identity through our conscious state. Like, you know, who are we as consciousness? Who are we as a soul? Like, you know what I mean? Like, where is our true connectivity and our origin? I think that's why we also decided to get into a lot of the information that we did, especially with the Anunnaki and stuff, because it leads us in a way to this discussion. You know, like we said, there's more to speak up on that. And, you know, there's things that we'll hone in on as far as, you know, where we kind of already started going with that. But like we said, we want to take this more so on a personal standpoint, through our own experiences and, you know, experiences that we see through other people and what they're going through, and be able to kind of go just deeper on that.
Yeah. And I'll jump right to it. My dad passed away. He passed away on Easter, and because of that, and I'm doing okay. You know, first few days were rough, but, because of all of the knowledge I've accumulated over my life, you know, I went through a bad time starting 2012 and on. You know, Sandy had hit, and, you know, me and my father had like a up and down relationship. He was an alcoholic and stuff like that. And I'll admit that, you know, he dealt with depression, and why I bring that up and why I would admit it is because a lot of people deal with it, and I know that they're out there. And I think it has a lot to do with the state of the world and the state of the system and where we're at in our own minds. and how we're so disconnected from each other. And, my dad, I think that happened, what had happened to him, I think it really came from feeling unwanted and disconnected from the world and other people. And a lot of it did come from him being disconnected from himself. And that's my point on why I like to bring that up. It's very important to know who you are and what you want to be, and then be in that authentic self. And the problem is, and this is where I understand with a lot of people, is the way the system and the way the world is set up. It's hard to do that because, yes, the simple, always goes back to, well, I got to pay the bills. I got to take care of my family. And the way the system had set it up for us where, we put you through school, we're going to indoctrinate you into the school, and then, we're going to put you in the workplace, and then you got to go immediately right out of school, and they don't even give you time to ponder and think about who you are and what you want to be and what you really want to be. And that, I think, leads to a lot of the cases of depression and anxiety because we're running away from ourselves, or we never even found them.
Yeah, because I think because our state of existence, just that pure state of existence, longs for that feeling of inner peace. And, we're all searching for happiness, but what is happiness? What defines what makes us happy? Sure, you can say that, oh, well, if only I can just obtain this or live this certain way and stuff, then I'll be happy. But, like what caused us to have this reevaluation was the fact of understanding that, like, even when you do obtain certain things in life that may be on the more material sense, that may also play into a lifestyle that you want to have, there still can be okay, you accomplished that. What's next? What's the next part of it? How are you going to maintain that level of fulfillment and happiness? And I feel like that's something to address, is our natural state of being, something that's higher than ourselves and even sometimes higher than we could even understand. It's how to accomplish that, or how to feed that part of ourselves. And I think that does come down to us as more, as a sovereign soul and sovereign humans. Yes, but our consciousness, it really dwells in that area.
Yeah. Getting in touch with who we really are and what we really are. And I think understanding that is going to assist us in reaching those higher levels of consciousness, and not to always use that big C word, but like more so just that awareness of self and where everything came from. And by the way, if you have no knowledge, you have no power, because the person who has the knowledge has the power over you. That goes as simple as, I'm a music producer, but there's someone has 5 to 10 years more experience than I am, and they learn from certain teachers and this and that. And that, if I go and record a CD, that person who has the knowledge and the experience is going to have power over me. They're gonna be able to control things more often into their own way and where they want things to go. And that's the thing with learning about topics with our origins, our symbols used, the religions, where did the belief systems come? Because the people that do have that knowledge and the understanding, the deeper understanding of it, they have a more control over that. Like, for example, I took my dad's death very, obviously the mourning process is still it's going on, but understanding life more and having more wisdom and building more faith on things gave me more of a foundation to where I don't even have to halt my life and still pay respects and rest in peace, Pops. I love you and rest in peace. But he wouldn't want me sitting here being upset and all that, and understanding that we do have a soul, and understanding beyond religions and beyond your government and beyond your groups that you've joined and everything else, there is this one-on-one connection with the divine, or just the creator or source. And when you do feel that and understand that connection and you're more aware of it, it doesn't, it makes things like this a lot more easier, because you start to feel like, you're connected, or it's eliminated the fear. And it's a big reason why I've jumped on the journey to wisdom and knowledge and understanding things more, because I feel like with that power, I'm going to be able to not only change my life for the better and do good things and better things for myself, but then when I heal myself from the understanding, I now give it to you guys, and other people around me.
Yeah. And that's the thing, because life keeps going. Life doesn't just stop because of a tragic event or anything that happens in someone's life, it's still there. You still have to keep going. And, some people, it may be very, very hard to continue with everyday life when, say, something like Ray's dad's passing happens. And that's why I was saying to him earlier was that, if he was more so not into a lot of these things that we talk about and
he wasn't.
Yeah. No, I mean you. If you were somebody who more so is not somebody into a lot of the things we discuss and the understanding of what we've come to understand that we're still understanding or looking to understand in life, this may, not to say that it's not a hard process that you're going through, but it would have been a lot more difficult to continue on with everyday life without it constantly affecting you. And, a lot of people, it may affect them in such a negative way. And it could lead to their own
demise.
Hardships in life. And that's what, Ray means about, creating that foundation for yourself. Yes, a lot of people have religion and a lot of people have a spiritual based type thing. And yes, this is partially that. But there's also those same people that have those things and then they go through the process and they completely destruct and they completely say, fuck everything that I believe, fuck God, all this stuff. And they start cursing the very thing that they believe in, their very foundation. And it makes you wonder, it's like, did you ever really believe it? Did you, or were you just going through the motions of it and just to say you did?
Yeah. Have you checked yourself at the door?
Yeah.
Have you developed these belief systems and everything? Because it's not about attacking or trying to deconstruct a belief system because someone's trying to be right. In America, it goes back to our state of the country. Like everyone's like, well, no, I'm right. And I want to be right and this and that. But when I want to discuss these things, it's more so like, let's clear it up and make it to where we all understand each other and everything so we can have an easier life and a more of a connection to each other and to the world and to whatever you want to call the creator or almighty being or whatever it is, even if you don't believe it as, in my personal belief, I don't believe it as a human being. I think human beings like to symbolize everything as something they're familiar with. And I think God is something we can't define as a human. We can't give it a personality, him, her, whatever you want to call it. All these words and symbols are just they're guidance mechanisms to help us understand and make us feel more comfortable. But is that all it really is? Have you chosen these words in this group of people and this place to go pay your respects and homage to the Almighty One or Jesus or whoever else that people out there worship or at least praise? And is it the words, and the people around you? It's just you feel comfortable. Like, have you checked yourself at the door? Because when something like this happens, you will get the reality check. When something happens to you, not so morbid, like let's say, you lose, you have a divorce or you lose your house. I had Hurricane Sandy come and wipe my house out and easily could have went into, why would God allow that? And immediately it's like so many people out there, that's where they start hitting they start losing their faith. One of my biggest goals is to clear up scriptures in the Bible, even metaphysics and spirituality and connecting everything and understanding what all of these things really meant. Because the more that we live in our lies, or if they are, whatever is like without clearing the air and really understanding things deeply, we don't have the power. We don't have the ability. And I think it's it's still one of the biggest questions everybody has. What's the point of life? Is there God? If it is it a divine one? Who's our creator? Is something watching over me? Stuff like that, angel, and it's all for a sense of comfort. And, what if the answer, and this is just I guess, a rhetorical thing, but like, what if the answer lies beyond the, like, letting go of the paradigm and the words and the symbols and understanding what they mean deeply and realizing that they all connect to other things that could be scientific, that could be another religion, like everything's pointing to a certain thing, and it's a matter of just a misunderstanding. Doesn't remove Jesus Christ or anything from your life, doesn't remove any of the symbols or things that you've used to associate yourself with comfort, with security, with feeling like something's there for you, and so you can live a, secure life, and you feel like, you can you could be free within your own self and know that you have this almighty father figure making sure that you're okay. But the answer may be right beyond that. Like, the truth is, I totally think, from me being someone who was religious when they were younger and then starting to understand it more deeply and looking into things more and more, that not that it was the wrong path, but there's levels to it.
Yeah. And I also think it's to refrain from making everything so external, and these understandings make it seem like it's so beyond you, like that it's something that you have to, going to a book or going to a lecture of some sort or a teaching. I think a lot of these answers can come from within yourself, through feeling, through intuition, through reconnecting yourself with this oneness of the unknown, and finding a place of solitude and comfort in that, to allow it to come into you as well. I know that we constantly, even for same thing for people that, are, say, non-believers or something, or, don't believe in God or whatever and stuff like that. This is the same thing. It occurs for anybody to understand stuff in this way. And I think that's also something that a lot of these religions, not just to say Christianity or Catholicism or anything like that, I think there's a way of going about it that has left those people that are non-believers and such to reject it. And there is something good to be said in a lot of these religions. I think there is something that, that they are onto something. Some of them, like I always use the example of, how my mom is, or the church that she goes to, because I've been there as well too. And I agree with a lot of the way that they go about it. And I feel like I haven't seen any other churches such as Christian churches or pastors or whatever go about it that way. But like I always say, I just feel like there's this missing aspect that doesn't seem so welcoming to the non-believer, where it makes the non-believer seem ostracized, or, not that they're purposely trying to ostracize that non-believer, but it may be too much at once for that believer. And they leave it in the hands of God to be like, oh, well, when they're ready to accept God and Jesus Christ as their savior, then they'll come and then they'll start doing the work and come look for him and whatever and stuff. But I don't think that's enough. I think there's more that can be done on the sense of how you approach that non-believer, and not to say that they have to be a non-believer of Christ or God. They can be a non-believer of anything, of any sort of higher power or anything. It's just, it's the approach to understanding that there is this higher organization, there's this higher path and frequency and stuff that we have the ability to tap into, without using a lot of the dogmatic type, ritualistic, these real set up ways or laws all the time, or just all this whole structured thing. I think to first come into it, it takes a stillness. It takes a releasing of any sort of thoughts, feelings of any kind, from the past, from the present, and from the future, and just being in the moment, in the here and now, and to see what comes up without any expectation. And I think that release is what can be the first thing to invite things. And that's why I say, that's why I feel like a lot of these teachings or religions or anything and stuff miss that point, even going into the scientific aspect or of consciousness and and spirituality and even, energy and frequencies. I think also that stuff, there's a way of approaching it that can ostracize somebody in a way when I think bringing it back to the person themselves in their moment and allowing them to come into it through a base feeling and allowing them to express what's going on for them, that then it can derive and be like, okay, well, now go into this information, this religion or this, whatever. That's when there can be more of an openness to it, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, and I like the point is very clear to someone who's been outside the box for a little while looking in, because I've learned that there's a validity to all the teachings. And when you're in those certain situations where you're a Christian or you're Catholic or whatever other religion, this isn't really pinpointed to, it's just the idea of it is, it could sound to someone who's a non-believer very cultish, very not welcoming. And then also when you give someone just the whole when you say dogmatic beliefs, like the whole, like, well, if you do this, then he will forgive you and this and that. And you're giving someone such this euphemistic type way of seeing it. Like it's just got to go straight off of just straight hope and all of that stuff and faith. But yet when you open your mind and you just see beyond the dogma and understand it's telling the truth, but then there's science to back it up. And it's just not the way, you're just slightly misinterpreting it. Like it's a narrow path and you're a little off the path. And that's just my own personal belief, is you're a little off the path if you're just putting your hopes and faith and all that stuff into the symbols and into the the worship and the praising and all of that stuff. Is what in that moment are you doing personally? Like what process are you really doing? Like with baptism, I have this whole understanding of baptism. When you start learning the 4 elements of Greek, like in consciousness, they define it as earth, water, air, and fire. And when you really think about dumping water on someone's head, is that really going to appease some guy on some other planet? It just turns them on and shit. Like when you hear those certain types of stories and you question it and it's a little funky, you're like, I believe beyond that lies a deeper truth, which is what to understand. And I've heard that, like with Greek mythology and connecting it to the Bible with baptism is, baptizing yourself or entering the water and having that flood go on inside your brain is actually a form of meditation that goes in and washes away all the bad thoughts. And when you think of it like that, where you think of it in more of like you're using it as imagery and symbolism to a process that goes on inside the brain and something that you could start doing today, right now, to help raise your consciousness or help heal you, then now I start seeing the application. But I got water dumped on my head when I was little. I was baptized and I had plenty of suffering. And I'm just not going to be the one to sit back and say, well, everything's in God's will like that. Like, what if God's will is for me to go deeper and to understand these things more, to get in touch with him more, and to not be a minister of the letter, one to take things all, one as given to me, to not go on my own path of discovery and to go to this place that's going to tell me what to think and tell me what to do and all that. I feel like God would want us to all have our own personal, unique journeys to go find him. Yeah. Instead of just everyone joining a club, it goes into politics too. Yeah. Like, I'm in, I'm blue. Mm-hmm. So what? All the blue people accept you, and now you feel like you're connected and you feel like you're in. But that's false, because I'm not saying maybe to some of you personally, not you really believe the ideals and all the things, but it's like, do you really, or you just do you just agree with a few things and you just want to be connected and you just want to be involved and you feel comfortable there? Is it? Oh, it goes back to comfort. Is it comfort? Is it laziness? Are you afraid? And obviously I wouldn't blame you. Yeah. Anybody would be.
And also that also creates this tendency to disconnect from other people outside of that group or whatever it may be. And that's the whole point. It's like you need to be able to connect. And it's not that saying everybody sit around holding hands, singing Kumbaya and stuff together, but there's more of a way of having to outreach and connect with others, and not necessarily that everybody's got to agree the way or see things how you see them. It's to be able to cohabitate and coexist with one another, and to be able to have a respect for one another and a loving embrace when it comes to other thoughts and opinions and beliefs and cultures and races, whatever it may be. That is the whole point that we're missing. We're missing that connection back. And I think in order to establish that connection back, it takes an establishment of connection within yourself and within your greater sense of being and your greater sense of purpose. And I know that gets thrown out a lot. It's like, finding your purpose, and everybody's purpose, like you were saying too, it's unique to you. It may not be something of which you even think it is, or how you want it to fashion, but I think going down a certain path that resonates intuitively and you feel is best, that you feel is in best, helping you embrace that and bringing you into a sense of awareness that's grander and fulfilling, that will bring you into really eventually getting close to understanding what your purpose is and what it is that you are to be doing. I think that even the making mistakes is part of all that. Making mistakes is part of the purpose. Something that I was always taught when I was younger was like, my dad would be like, oh, I teach you these things so that you don't have to make those mistakes. Because anytime I tried to be like, I have to learn on my own or whatever and stuff, like if I make the mistakes, and he was like, why? If I'm telling you what it is and what not to do or what to do, why do you need to make those mistakes? And I never had an answer for that at first. I always was like, shit, he's kind of right. But I think also it's the sense of the experience, because the experience brings on a certain feeling, and you either want to feel that feeling for whatever reason it may be, or you may understand like, okay, it brought on this certain feeling. So if I can understand that feeling, it'll keep me from doing the things that will bring on that feeling, because that feeling has brought me despair or destruction or whatever it may be. Or it may have brought you something good. It could go either way. But I think that's the whole point, and that's probably the thing that I would say now. If being asked that question, it would be like, well, yes, I understand it's the point of, you're being told that you don't need to do that. If you just listen, you won't have to deal with that circumstance. But who's to say that the circumstance doesn't arise no matter what without you making the mistake? What if that circumstance that that creates a feeling within you comes about just from everyday life, or something happens in your life that's not necessarily a fault of your own? It just comes on. Now it's like you have to experience it no matter what. You have to experience that feeling, and it's still new to you. So why not go through the experience and understand the feeling of it and be able to process it in a way to further learn your lesson and be like, okay, well, now I know how to handle that type of thing.
Right. Yeah. And, it's, put it this way. So, because you could relate the whole parent thing to religion or to your government. Your government's going to tell you to do something. Your parents are going to tell you to do, and it's like, if you do this, we're just trying to protect you. We're just trying to do this. But if, let's just say in divine order, that you are here for a purpose, and those things that you are being told to kind of stray away from, or the mistakes that you're being led astray from, like of not committing those mistakes, what if it's part of your journey for you to integrate and to understand something by experiencing it? Because we all know pain is the best teacher. What if you're going to experience it regardless, because it's part of the divine order for you to adjust and grow and to expand? And if God works that way, which, I mean, even religions, they do say that, God works in mysterious ways in God's will. What if God's will is, it's not about, the club you're in or the people that you're surrounded by fully. It's about you, and you have to go commit those mistakes because it's going to shape and mold you to the person I want you to be, instead of the person that they want you to be. I feel like with God and learning all this stuff about religion and all that, I really think it's an individual, personal relationship. And once again, it's funny because I always hear religionists in my head going, well, yeah, that's what, they'll agree with me, but there's a contradiction in the factor where they're saying, yeah, but if you do this, you're going to go to hell. Or if you're not in our church, you're going to be punished. But it's, what if, God, I have to go make those mistakes? We should allow people. It's not about, I don't think it's really fully for some people finding Jesus or a savior, but just being connected with life itself the universe, God, whatever you want to call it. Once again, we get caught up in names, symbols, clubs. I feel like, and we care about the external so much, but yet the kingdom of heaven is within you. I quote Jesus Christ in the Bible. The kingdom of heaven is within you. And we all say Jesus is in your heart and all that when you're talking Christianity. Well, if that's so, then why do I have to go to a church or anything like that? Maybe some people do, and we've discussed this, me and Gio, plenty of times. I feel like there's levels to it. I feel like at times there are certain people that need that congregation and they need that guidance and they need that. But I do sense there's this level up next to that where it's now then you disconnect and you isolate yourself so you and God can develop a personal one-on-one relationship so you can make the choices that abide to your journey without having the background noise of other people and, the things that you're involved in.
Yeah. And I'll just reiterate it for what me and Ray have discussed before, which came from a conversation that I had with my mother about the whole thing about what a lot of churches and religions will say about, oh, well, you're supposed to go to church, and it's not necessarily, some people do say that it's like, oh, you're not just supposed to go to church one day a week. You're supposed to go, frequently or whatever and stuff and, my mom brought up the sense of, I was like, I don't think that that's a necessity though. And I also don't think it's right to tell people that, you're being sinful in any sort of way. They could say, some can say, oh, you're going to hell, or others can be not so extreme and just be like, well, you're not fulfilling what God expects of you. And, when we broke that down deeper, it was about the sense that she brought up, God's laws. She brought the 10 Commandments that you need to create fellowship and the whole congregation of the church and being around a certain people. That's what it means. And I'm like, okay, I understand that. I get the fact that it's like, okay, that's fellowship right there. That's being able to be able to do God's work and embrace in God's word, or in that higher power to be able to really express it and express it with other people. But in the same sense, I was like, don't you feel that fellowship, that same thing can be done just in your everyday life with anybody you come in contact with? That doesn't mean going around being a Bible thumper and hitting people over the head with the scriptures and everything and trying to draw people into God, but necessarily living out, say, the expectations of Jesus, and when he's talking about how we should be to our fellow neighbors and brothers and sisters and all this stuff, it's like being able to show that love and compassion in your everyday life with anybody you come in contact with on a day-to-day basis, whether it be your coworkers or, just that person that you crossed on the street or on the bus or whatever and stuff, or family members, friends. That's where I think that fellowship could come in. But I also said, here's the other thing, is that I think that congregation together, when we want to always talk about energy and heart frequencies and everything and stuff like that, I think when you have multiple people on that same frequency of, let's say, for this example, everybody, having this praise and this worship of God and the word and all of that, and they come together, I do think that all those heart frequencies and those fields come together to create this stronger, higher resonance that allows more of the divine to come in and settle within our minds and our hearts and those people. I get that. Absolutely. I'm not saying that that's not a good thing to do. I think that's a great thing to do.
But there's levels to this shit.
Yes, exactly. So like I used the example, I said to my mom, I said, Mom, I go, if you were to, if there was no more church allowed to happen, no more congregating and all that shit, got banned or whatever and stuff. Yes, you may have certain people that, will do it on the low and secretive and stuff. But I was like, if that was never to be a thing anymore, no churches, none of that and stuff. I go, do you feel like your faith or your connection or your relationship with God would change because you can't do those things no more? And she said, no. I go, why do you think that is? She's like, well, because I'm so embraced in the resonance and the feeling of God, and I understand that he's within me. And I go, so he's within you. The church is within you. So
yeah, you are the church. It goes back into that allegorical way of looking at it.
Yes. And that's where I said about the fact that I was like, okay, I was like, so therefore it's established already. The church is established for you within yourself, and you can practice those things on your own. I go, but now think of somebody that you go to church with who maybe may still be coming into the word of God and the feeling and the faith of God. How about for them? If all that was to happen where the church is done and no more over with, what do you think would happen to them? She's like, oh, I think that maybe they may get consumed by what's going on around them. I go, why is that? Because they're not established in that faith or that unity and that connection with God.
Yeah, and there is a scripture that says that, do not build your house or whatever it is on sand, and to build a firm foundation. And so now if you've put your faith in external things outside of you, like say a church or a group, and it's not, and you don't have this personal relationship with life or God or whatever it is you would like to call it, then you have built your house on sand, because now it could easily be taken away from you. So it's about really, building this firm relationship with life itself and God itself. And if you do that, then I think that's going to church. That's the allegorical sense. We take everything too literal. We're looking for places on earth that people were at in the stories and this and that, and it's cool. But now let's really just take a glance at the world and the state and everything. And I know that a lot of religionists have a comeback that it's God's will or that, it's revelations and it's meant to be. What if everything is really supposed to be happening internally? What if Jesus returns internally? What if he's here already? And when I say he, I'm talking about this consciousness, this energy, this something that the New Agers call Christ consciousness. It's this tapping into the frequency of the divine, and it's around you all the time, and it's inside of you. The kingdom of heaven is within you. So what if it's just this state of mind, state of consciousness, tapping into a frequency? And you're the church, and the tabernacle is within, God said that he was in a temple that was built by no hands. Well, why don't you just put your two fingers on your head and realize that you have a temple, two temples right up here, and that the
what's
seed
in between,
right? The sand, and we all know that we've heard the pineal gland called the seat of God or seat of the soul. So these biblical stories end up, for me, turning into these allegorical things about me and about consciousness and about nature. And then what that does for me is it actually reconnects me to everything. It actually reconnects me to the Bible. It reconnects me to all these. It actually brings all the religions together too. Of course, a lot of them we've learned in the ancient alien thing that game of telephone happens, things change. But in the end, they're all pointing to these similar things, all coming from different cultures and different times. Why are they all being written the same way? Like, why do they have similar aspects? Because in my opinion, it's about you. Yeah. It's about you and me and everything going on inside of us and in the mind and in nature. We're watching the sun travel about with the 12 zodiacs, and then there was 12 disciples and 12 tribes of Israel, and then you have 12 cranial nerves in the brain, and you have 12 systems of the body, and all these numbers repeat. And we all know that a lot of people with even like the Kabbalah and all and the Talmud with the Jewish people and all that numbers repeat for a certain reason. And it's like, wow, that makes sense. Wow. So like I'm connecting my own body with something that's going on in nature and in the sky. The earth too, 80% water or 90% water. So am I. Iron core if the earth's round,
And I think coming into this deeper understanding of all this and embracing it as more of this inner emotion too, and the intuition and feeling and understanding, like I was saying, it helps get rid of a lot of those problems that religions are looking to get rid of. This disconnection from one another, this, constant race war or, cultural differences.
Wars in general.
Yeah, and wars in general. It's like this helps us be able to come together, if anything, on this understanding, because therefore you don't feel estranged from the other person because they have a different belief. If anything, you understand now and accept that their belief is not necessarily wrong. It could be how they're interpreting it that may be wrong. It could be how they're applying it that could be that could be misconstrued in a way and stuff. But this allows you to have an openness instead of constantly being like, oh, they don't believe what I believe in, or they believe in the wrong thing. And, it makes that whole thing creates this holier than thou type fucking mentality that just furthers that just makes the problem worse.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? I know a lot of people out there, it may trigger like, well, what is wrong? Like why are you saying wrong? Well, I would guess or assume, or actually I would say I won't even, I know this, that if it's preventing some sort of evolution and bonding and connection to people, then I do know it's wrong. You know what I mean? Like, that means we're going backwards. It's destructive. It's separating. Yeah. That doesn't make people happy. We can all admit at this point, especially going through a crisis like we are, that disconnection feels awful, and being separated from people that we love, or not feeling like we're in a group of people, say, unless you're in denial, but you're in a group that you're just in there because you somewhat feel comfortable, but it's not real, true, genuine connection. We have all of these feelings lurking in the unconscious mind. We don't even know it. And this would be the way to fix it. This would be the way to unite all the things we call belief systems and understanding the true facts about everything. Welcome to the North Node in Gemini.
Yeah. I mean, let's take it from now, like in that same sense, let's take it from a Christ biblical standpoint and stuff. I mean, if you want to look at it on this type of more literal level and stuff, if Christ was to sit there and just congregate with his followers all the time and stay in the places that he was accepted and not go outside of the comfort zone and go preach in the temples and go, speak the word of God in his own town where, a lot of people saw it was blasphemy, what he was doing and claiming that he was the Messiah and everything and stuff. Jesus's work wouldn't have been what we know it as today. You know what I mean? If you want to take it from that literal standpoint, if to stay in that comfort zone, and that's why it does take to be able to go beyond the limitations, go beyond the box of what we feel and what's in our mind, and be able to maybe express something that somebody else is going to think it's controversial or it's going to be threatening to their beliefs or whatever and stuff like that. You can't stay in that comfort. And, and that's where we go into the sense of understanding the Bible not to be so literal, that it is allegorical, because when you go into those stories, even with the story of the relationship between Jesus and John the Baptist, and John the Baptist was the one that it was like, no, like we have to damn the people, and not be so forgiving of our enemies and everything. But Jesus took it in the sense of afterwards being like, no, if somebody slaps you in the cheek, you turn your other one and everything. Not that you got to fight back. John the Baptist was trying to say to fight back and everything. And it just goes to show that standpoint, to be like, hey, you could be doing all this and think you're doing God's work or whatever, but how are you doing God's work by limiting who you're reaching? How are you when you're not reaching a broader spectrum of people and just staying within your own group? What good does that actually do?
I feel to me, sounds like a cult. It does to me. And I know that could trigger some people, but it does. It sounds very cultish, believe what we believe or you are smited and you will go to a bad place. And that doesn't help. It doesn't. Yeah. I don't care.
I don't think it's enough to just pray for those people. It's not enough, I don't think.
Honestly, excuse my French, but I feel like that's religionists going, fuck him.
Yeah.
Well, if he finds Jesus, all right, good. But if not, fuck him.
Yeah.
That's what I get from it. Too bad for him. He hasn't found Christ. When he does, maybe he can join the club.
I think that creates a sense of judgment of those other people outside of your beliefs, that you're saying, oh, well, that's on them. And yes, I think there is a sense where you have to let go and be like, hey, that's between them and God. That's between them and the higher power and stuff, whatever, happens. But if you are not actively making that choice to connect with that person on wherever level that they're at and be able to come to some sort of compassion for that person and understanding, especially if we're talking about understanding, God and the divine and all of that on this level, and you're just only speaking with like-minded people, and you're not, there's certain people that may be struggling in life and you're not finding a way to reach them, and not saying that you got to push all this God or higher power, divine or spiritual stuff on the person, but being able to have a certain conversation that may be even intellectual, and maybe they're more so somebody who leans towards science. And if you're somebody who's more religious or spiritual or something, then you try to only talk to them on the way you are instead of being able to relate to where they're at. I think, you aren't doing that divine work that's truly meant of you if you're only staying in where you're at. I think you need to come out of that and be able to understand where the person's at and see where their connection could be made. That's the true point, is to really have that connection, because there is so many things that separate us in this world. And even in biblical sense, the whole problem and the whole original sin and everything comes from separation. You know, everybody says, oh, especially the Christians or the real religious people, they say God's war, and it's, it's God's spiritual war and the war in heaven, or the war here on earth that's going to rain down, like they speak in Revelations. God doesn't create war. I just don't believe that. God doesn't create war. God doesn't create this violence. We do. People do.
Yeah, and we don't just sit back and wait and say, well, all right, well, we'll just, because obviously we're the ones doing it, but then maybe it's also our foundations and where it is we're coming from. It's where we're coming from. The people that go, oh, fuck him, he doesn't believe it, this and that, hopefully he finds whatever. And I even hear some more proper people that believe it. We don't say that. We don't say fuck them. That's so mean. Well, it's like, well, indirectly, you're saying that. Let's just be blunt. Let's just say that you really are, because you're discrediting or disowning somebody because they don't follow the same words and symbols that you do. When yet, if Jesus Christ was to sit and, like, let's just say he got to sit next to you for the next month, and without you knowing that he was there, and the things that you've thought about other people and the things that you've projected onto others, would he approve of that? Regardless of if you praise him or not. I mean, don't you think that's a little selfish, just because you go to a place and you sit with people that believe the same thing, that, oh, well, I'm saved. Yeah. But yet your book, though, that you have on all your scriptures could potentially, which I know for a fact have the truth, but it's about dropping the whole, like, you don't got to wear costumes, you have to wear some fish hat, and you don't got to, come on some balcony, all that. It's ritualistic and it's nonsensical, and it doesn't help the fact. And it freaks a lot of people out. You got to dress up in robes and you got to do this shit that, that's, to me, that's so obnoxious off the top.
Yeah. And that goes with the whole putting that power outside of yourself. Instead of where you should be drawing that within. And not power as in being powerful over somebody or a group of people, but it's to be powerful in your own mind, in your own heart, and your own life, to be able to overcome the adversities of life, the obstacles that we face, and the certain negative emotions and all that. And it's like, when we speak of that, it's like, well, okay, if you're listening to this and you understand that now, and you're like, okay, I agree with that, and I see where you're coming from, Ray and Gio, but how does one do this? Well, that's the whole point of getting this conversation, is to understand that there is a way of doing it. And a lot of it does come from having that stillness and meditation. And that's the other thing that can be misconstrued, is that whole meditation thing. People, like, what do I got to do? Become vegan and all of a sudden meditate and do yoga and all that stuff. And it's like, no, there's many different levels to meditation. You could be in meditative states without sitting there cross-legged, and all that stuff. There's ways to have that connection. You can do that just in your drive, and you could do that in any sort of way, but it takes understanding the body. It takes understanding these words and these scriptures in this sense, to be able to understand what is happening within the body, what is happening within nature, what's happening there. And that's kind of where we want to go with this, to be able to take it to. Yeah.
I mean, kind of decoding what certain scriptures mean, how that relates to the body, how it relates to our connection to nature. We have scientists and documents that go and explain what meditation really does to the body, how it connects with the subconscious mind actually being the body, and we have trapped traumas, and we could heal through this by letting go of our stories and paradigms. And a lot of people, I think, within the trauma that they hold, they lean on something external, when yet it's all inner work. And understanding that the Bible and that scriptures and what Jesus and all these other gods and people we praise are trying to tell us, is when he says the kingdom of God is within you, heaven and hell is something you carry. It's all about taking care of the temple, which is the body. Mm-hmm. It's about taking care of your spirit and your soul and your body. And if you do that, one, you're going to vibrate high energy and be very infectious. and you're going to affect people in a different way. But it's all about doing that inner work. And if you're running the church every Sunday and preventing yourself from doing that inner work and think you're doing this repent and this duty and service to the world and to people because you're going to sit in a pew and judging others, there is an issue with that. And it's been my issue with it since I was a kid. And I don't attack anyone. You could, like I said, you can worship Joe Pesci and think he is the Lord Jesus Christ. It's fine. If that helps you be a good person, awesome. The Church of Joe Pesci is open. But at the same time, if you're shunning people and kind of eliminating the whole connection factor and allowing people to, helping others heal and have you heal, and you're running away from it, that's where my problem lies with religions. Also new age people, I can't be around that person. They're low vibrational, It goes into all of the sectors. And when we pinpoint the issue, what is it? It's our beliefs. It's the things that we say that we think we know and how it affects us and others around us. And that's where we do have to go to church. And what that really means is go and meditate and drop the story and allow this information, allow yourself to really watch the thoughts and what it is you're really, intending to be and intending to do to people. Like, what's your real effect? Like, really look at yourself. And most people are afraid of that. And that's where, even with the political parties, stop running away from yourself. Stop worrying about what other people are doing. Focus on you and your immediate environment. You're only going to affect the world by you. Go on social media and post a meme and this and that. You're doing jack shit. I don't care about what you say, on social media. You're just, because everyone's just going with social media. One, you're not even getting this emotional connection or like actual debate. You're typing words on a screen, and that's not going to change anybody's paradigm. It's not. They're always going to respond from where they're at. They're not. You're not going to change that person. But we think we can. But no, it's about going and doing the things. It's about being active within your community. It's about being, a helping hand and being a good person to those people. You wouldn't have things happen to someone like my father or other people who are suffering inside because they feel so disconnected from the world and they feel like they have no purpose because the way our system and the way our belief systems have totally just destroyed our abilities to even experience life in the most authentic and genuine way that God would want, not what your church and pastor would. And yes, there's not bad ones out there. There's plenty. I heard a lot of stories about Gio's stuff with his mom, where she goes and sounds like a great guy. And there's certain churches, and they're not all bad. It's not about that, but it's about gaining a personal understanding without needing that. And then if you need to go congregate and go sit with people that feel and think the same way because you want to build connection that way, but let's just check you at the door again and really see, like, where are you coming from? What have you really analyzed yourself, or have you run away and repented to somebody else?
Are you able to create that very sturdy foundation within yourself that doesn't necessarily take the action of being like, oh, I need to go here or to this church or do this fellowship and stuff in order to embrace that? Are you able to embrace that on your own? If you want to do this, the fellowship and the congregation, all that stuff, and going to church later on, that's great. If that makes it help you embody it even more and stuff, and further, you're stepping into this, then that's great. Just make sure you're going and doing it for the right reasons, because we know that a lot of people don't. A lot of people go because they're appeasing somebody, or they go because they think that if I do this, and if I go here, or if I say this, or I sing this, or I pray this, then I'm with God, or God's gonna hear me out, or God. No, it's you. That's just all next level stuff.
It's what David Palmer said last night on his YouTube live, where he was like, I compare it to these like celebrities that go and do charity because they're not, do they care about the charity, or do they do it because other people see that they're doing it and they're getting validation?
It expected of them,
right?
That's the thing. It's like you don't just be doing it because you think that that's what is expected of you to do any of these things. There's something that you need to establish within. So, I mean, now that we talk about this, like, it's like, how do we establish that within? If you want to talk about, we've said how meditation's a big part of this process and all that. There's something that I do, we always say about being able to disconnect yourself from the logical mind and to go into more of the right hemisphere of the brain where the creativity happens and all that. And and to also release ourselves from our beliefs. And a lot of it has to do with releasing ourselves from certain emotions that we have on certain thoughts or things or occurrences, and dropping this identity to us and ourselves on this external platform. Like, instead, I'm not, like, being able to drop the fact of, you know, I'm a son, or I'm whatever my occupation is, like releasing all those identities and becoming no one. And there's something I want to read from, it's actually from Joe Dispenza's Becoming Supernatural book that goes into this, to be able to better understand it from even a more scientific, neurological standpoint and stuff. And it says, when we become nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, in no time, we are taking our attention off all the distractions in our outer world that keep us from being present with the unified field of intelligence that is within us and all around us. We are tuning inward and being present with a consciousness that is always present with us. The moment we line up with that omnipresent consciousness, as if we're looking directly in a mirror, it looks back at us, and it can finally reflect what we show it that we want. The longer we linger in this space of nothing material and invest our attention and energy into it, the closer we move to the unified field. And when we are at the altar of infinite potentials, when we change our energy, we change our lives. So that's going into more so of the reasoning behind coming into this state of being, in this state of consciousness, is because it allows us to disconnect from all that, to be able to be, like it says, more unified with this intelligent field, who some may call it God, some may call it Krishna, some may call it whatever. But no matter what, it's the same thing that's being spoken about, is this, you know, it's hard to put into words. It sounds very spiritual, or sometimes it sounds religious, but it's this space that exists from our linear imagination of time and space, and are getting us away from this material substance of what we consider life and all the things in it, to be able to embody what that really is. And when doing so, it allows us to tap into newer feelings, newer, emotions, and more constructive thought processes too, once we come back to our more logical sense. And it's a practice to be done, to be able to embody that, and to be able to consistently do it on a daily basis, and to be able to do it unconsciously. And there is a way to do it unconsciously. But the other thing that I do want to state and go further, that is also in this book, is like the whole fact of being able to like understanding how your thoughts on things and your emotions on things, whether they're the past or thoughts in the future, how they become so, like, how they resonate so much within yourself that they start affecting your reality. I just want to read this one thing here. So let's take a closer look at what happens biochemically inside your body when you think a thought or feel an emotion. When you think a thought or have a memory, a biochemical reaction begins in your brain, causing the brain to release certain chemical signals. That's how immaterial thoughts literally become matter. They become chemical messengers. These chemical signals make your body feel exactly the way you were just thinking. Once you notice you are feeling a particular way, then you generate more thoughts equal to how you're feeling. And then you release more chemicals from your brain to make you feel the way you've been thinking. For example, if you have a fearful thought, you start to feel fear. The moment you feel fear, that emotion influences you to think more fearful thoughts, and those thoughts trigger the release of even more chemicals in the brain and body that make you continue to feel more fear. The next thing you know, you get caught in a loop where your thinking creates feeling and your feeling creates thinking. If thoughts are the vocabulary of the brain and feelings are the vocabulary of the body, and the cycle, how you think and feel, becomes your state of being, then your entire state of being is in the past. When you fire and wire the same circuits in your brain over and over again because you keep thinking the same thoughts, you are hardwiring your brain into the same patterns. As a result, your brain becomes an artifact of your past thinking, and in time it becomes easier to automatically think in the same ways. At the same time, as you repeatedly feel the same emotions over and over again, since, as I just said, emotions are the vocabulary of the body, and the chemical residue of past experiences, you are conditioning your body into the past. So that's why when we wonder and sit there and think about like, oh, well, I do all these things and I still get the same results, or I pray to this one or that one and I still get it's because you're not allowing those chemical reactions in the brain and the body to happen because of the certain thoughts and expectations you may be having, and because you're identifying with certain things and certain experiences and certain ways of being rather than being able to truly let go. And this is where meditation comes in, because if you do it properly and you do it in a practical way where you start practicing it more and to be able to really truly understand it and feel it and embody that way of releasing, if you don't, and as we saw, like these emotions and these thoughts come up from the emotions as well and everything. And once you have these thoughts, it affects how you are acting in life. And therefore you start creating the same experiences. So if you can hardwire your brain to sit there and to be able to come up with new feelings within and stop identifying with certain things in the past or even things in the future, like saying, oh, well, I have this email that I have to send, or I got to do this, or I got to do that and stuff. Instead of staying on that timeline, you're able to release yourself from the timeline and then be able to create a new timeline within, be able to create a new experience and a new emotion within. This will generate new thoughts, and those thoughts will turn into actions, and those actions will turn into outcomes. And that's where you have the ability to control in a way what outcomes you start to face in your life. Yes, sure, a lot of things will just happen however they need to happen, but it takes your way of resonating with those things that happen and how you're going to allow them to make you feel that will dictate if you get caught up in that loop or if you're going to transcend them into something that's going to be more beneficial to your life or what you want to see or where you want to go. And that's why I feel like, that's how you can take the understanding of what we're saying about even, beliefs and religion and everything and stuff, and even see the scientific standpoint on a more anatomical level to see that there is ways of understanding this, and even understanding scripture in such a way that you realize that all this stuff is happening within you. Like Ray said, the kingdom of heaven is within you.
Yeah, I actually, while you were reading, I went and grabbed, because it goes right in line with the whole meditation thing and what you're saying and how you just explained all of that. I'm going to break it down real quick on how it is mentioned in the Bible. Just so you can see the correlations that he just gave you science. Now that's from a neurologist who's done, studies of the brain and does studies of brain waves and sees people heal all the time just by providing them, the workshops with meditation and things like that. And then I relate it back to the Bible, and the Bible itself says it's symbolic and shouldn't be taken literally anyway. And that's where I want to connect this dot here for you. In Corinthians 3:6, it says, who also made us ministers of the New Testament, not of the letter, but of the Spirit. For the letter kills, but the Spirit gives life. And what I get from that is don't read it literally. It's not of the letter. It's for the Spirit. It's for you to understand on a deeper level and for you to connect to it more spiritually. So here the Bible itself is telling us not to take it literally. Again, the Bible tells us that stories are actually allegorical. Galatians 4:24 says, which things are an allegory. So remember that as we showed the definition of we've talked about myths and symbols and stuff like that, that includes the term allegory because mythological stories hold those. It just means that it's a story that's not meant to be taken literal, but it's meant to be symbolically, there's supposed to be some sort of lesson or something taken from the story. And so the Bible says that, Jesus always spoke symbolically. Another one is Matthew 13:34 says, all these things spoke Jesus to the multitude in parables, and without a parable, he did not speak to them. So the Bible is saying that all of Jesus' statements were actually symbolic. The stories all have hidden meanings. So to understand them, we have to enter in. And when it says it's for the spirit, it's what Gio's talking about with meditation. To understand things more deeply, we meditate on them. We allow things to come to us. We drop the paradigms. We get out of the left brain. We get out of our labeling and our compartmentalization part of the brain, and we allow things to go into the right side. God planted a garden to the east. When you look north, east is to the right side of the brain. In Mark 4:11, and he said to them, unto you it is given to know the mystery of the kingdom of God, but to them that are without, all these things are done in parables.
Yeah.
So you can go biblically. You could go into stories and understand them. And I think the Bible holds just deeper wisdom and truth and all that, and just spoken within symbols and stories. And then we go to someone like Joe Dispenza or Greg Braden or these newer scientists that have shown us that meditation is good for you and it heals the body and it heals the mind, and that the subconscious mind actually is the body, vice versa. The Bible is actually telling us what to do, but we just have to understand the parables. We have to understand the meanings and the allegorical versions of it without always taking it literal. Once again, I'm a big Dragon Ball Z fan. In my mind, Goku's real and Vegeta, and they're out there, and I'm going to find them one day, but I don't have a church for that though, or I don't see them, put it this way. I use them as symbols as this, to me, they symbolize power, and they symbolize when the odds are against you, anything could happen, and you could push through and you could win when all the odds are against you. And that's how I would take, say, something like Dragon Ball Z and make it into an allegorical story. Yeah. They always push through. They always find a way. They always reach into the reservoirs of their power and find a way to push through and conquer the issue at hand. So with the Bible, it's, we're never telling you to not believe in the person or being that we're saying or we're talking about, but it's more so understanding that that person was trying to teach you something as Jesus would with speaking through parables. Yeah.
And I could take it a step further and play devil's advocate here and be like, well, then why didn't it just get written in the context of which we're saying it at? Well, here's the other thing. Here's a little bit of my own perspective on why that is.
I think we're on the same level here with
yes.
this. Yeah.
I think the reason why is, let's remember, we are material creatures. We are in a material world as well. And we always talk about the observer effect, right? Well, I think being able to hear it in these parables and in these more physical types of way of fashions allows us, because we always say that everything is light and vibration of particles and everything. Well, I think the fact that if we're able to understand it on a physical level, the same way that we collapse the light particle into a wave, or right? Am I saying that the right?
Wave into
that we collapse the wave into a particle.
Yeah.
So we make the immaterial into material through our minds, through our observation and stuff. I think even when you want to talk about clearing the third eye and everything and stuff, it's a way of us taking in this information, collapsing it in a sense that we understand it so that we can better visualize it and better feel it and be able to really resonate with the thought of it, and to be able to actually allow that chemical exchange to happen within the body.
Yeah, you know what? And it's funny you mention it that way, because think about what a movie will do to you, or music, or something like that. Like, why do people get obsessed with things like video games or like Star Wars, which I'm not really huge on, but like, just saying, Dragon Ball Z. Why? Because the images and the symbols and the things said in the show or in the song or whatever, it allowed my brain to integrate a certain emotion or understanding of something. And by doing that, it changed my mind. It helped me understand something on a deeper level, because it gave me a scenario and it gave me characters and it gave me things to relate to, which is why we made God a human, a guy with a beard and all that. Like, no, I mean, like, you could do that to understand it, but that's not, it's an allegorical way of seeing it. It's deeper than that. You have to go deeper. It's written for the spirit. Don't be a minister of the letter.
Yeah, and it helps you embrace it. It's that whole thing with, with the same way we say that, you could be sitting there watching a sporting event on TV and everything, and that you're not really there, or you're not acting out that sport, but your heart rate starts jumping up and you feel excited and energized from it, because the body itself cannot differentiate what's real life and what isn't, and
mirror
like what's
neurons.
actually it's the mirror neurons happening to the point where your body's experiencing what you're watching in the sense as if it's doing it itself.
So picture visualizing someone like Jesus and the feelings that you get if you truly invest yourself. So it's not like these people did a terrible thing by writing these stories and hiding the parables and allegories within them. So if you find out that some of your stories or some of your people didn't really exist and they were written allegorically, it wasn't to make you of a fool.
And let's not forget the fact that a lot of these wisdom and these scriptures and these teaching were sought after by people of power and wanted to silence a lot of this information and also wanted to use it for their own advantage and to keep it from people. In the same sense, when you go about it on the historical route and understand that some things may have needed to be put in these allegorical sense in order to protect the information.
Right.
And that's just multiple reasons. So therefore, this helps to create a better understanding of why we're saying, not to be so literal with things. And also in the sense that, also the literacy of it and in the fashion of putting it in these ways also is to help our minds, to help our imagination, to be able to create the reality of it within ourselves.
Yeah, let me just say it, and I'll say it one more time. I just want to reread that last passage just in case it passed by and you forgot about it. Mark 4:11 in the Bible, and he said to them, "Unto you it is given to know the mystery of the kingdom of God, but to them that are without, all these things are done in parables." That gives me chills, because all it's saying is if you're not seeing it the correct way, to you it will just be either a story, or you're just going to take it in a literal fashion, in a sense of you're not getting the deeper understanding. And to them without the kingdom of God, they will be just that, and so that's why it's so important. I mean, your Lord Jesus Christ is telling you to, it's something that was really important to him, to not be one of just religious groups and stuff. He actually spoke against that. So if you're living by his principles and you're praising this man, don't just fucking fiddle his testicles. Live by what it is.
Live by the word.
Yes, it's not about. He doesn't even want to be worshipped. Yeah. Anything I could do, you could do better. He had said it, and from here on out, and I had said this to Gio plenty. This is part of where it is we want to go with a lot of this stuff, and it won't be just strictly religious. We want to talk about,
but it will be related to a lot of it, because, like we said, it's being able to connect on that broader spectrum, from people who have no beliefs in things to the people that are the most religious and have beliefs and whatever. It's to be able to create that understanding of being able to unify on all different contrasts of belief and religion, to be able to come to a compromised understanding within one each other, to be like, I'm not against you. Because we need that more in the world, because of the fact of all the separation we see that's going on between the deception that goes on and the narrative constantly that causes a further divide, that makes us believe that there is a race war. And I'm not to say that some forms of racism doesn't exist, but it's sometimes not to the extreme of which we're being preached about that it is. And it's also, we see how damning it is and how destructive it is to our cultural societies, that it's just causing further movement away from the truth, away from unity, away from compassion and love and all of that. And I think coming into these understandings helps bring us back together with that.
Yeah, and you know what? We're all God's children and all that, right? Because many religions say that, and I know many of you who are religious do believe that. And I think, and I'm going to say this straight up, that if you think that this is all God's will and that we're just going to sit around and wait to be saved, then you're part of the problem, because you're not actually looking to heal the world and yourself. You're looking to just go repent every Sunday, and you're not helping the fact. You're not. And to say that, well, someone just has to find Jesus before I allow them in my heart, well, you're part of the problem. Yeah. You're part of the, just like I've heard plenty of people with like racism and stuff. It's like, if you're not helping the fact, you're with it, and I don't agree with that either, because sometimes it's a lot of people out there are just looking for a debate or an argument or a problem. And it's like, no, you have to approach these things with facts. It's not about belief systems. It's about It's about getting real facts. And with something like that, when you watch media and all that, it's really hard to listen to the statistics and what goes on with every story and all that. That's what makes it so tricky. But if we're all working on ourselves and getting in touch with ourselves and getting more enlightened and gaining the wisdom, we're going to know for a fact that none of that stuff is really, it's not happening as much as it is. It's about working on yourself and the ones around you, your immediate environment. And if you know that, and you're not experiencing it in your own immediate environment, if you just see it on TV, there's an issue there. You may be being deceived. So working on yourself and clearing up the belief systems and maybe dropping the groups, like go individually find yourself and go individually find your version or whatever it is you consider God or what it is that you need to be a better person. And that's fine. I know people go to religions to do that, but you also cannot be blindsided by your group and by the things that are being told to you. You have to live from the heart, as Jesus said.
Yeah, and you have to drop, and it's like when you come into... Oops, my chair. But when you come into that, it's like, and you come into the understanding the information, drop the narcissism, drop the arrogance of wanting to be right or wanting to show off your understanding or knowledge in a way that, it's to separate from that. The ego does, it's not to say to drop the ego completely.
You need it.
The ego is there to also be a material force of nature and to be able to have that expression and to have that confidence and stuff. But it's to drop that more real egotistical, narcissistic, arrogant side to be able to not have somebody on the defense and run away from what you're saying, and to be able to have, to help them be open to whatever it is that you're saying, and you said something about the whole, statistics thing. Like with every one statistic, there's another statistic. If you look into it enough, that there's another statistic that will counteract that one statistic.
It's the dumbest shit ever. And I can
find the numbers and you can piece together the numbers, whichever way, if you go into something the right way.
Well, and this is where it gets a little deep right here, but I do believe manifestation's a real thing. And if you're looking for an answer, the universe will provide you your truth, regardless if it's say false or not, when it comes to actually being a true staple in reality. But I do believe we'll attract the information that provides us our belief system. I think that happens. Yeah. And I'm not saying, in a false way. Like if you want to, I'm agreeing with how you're saying with statistics, if I want to go find the racism, I'll find it.
You'll find it.
I'll find it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Because you're looking for it.
Exactly. And then the other thing I wanted to say was that, you said, we're all God's children and there's that whole concept and everything. It's like, here's the other thing. We've seen, and the ancients have talked about it all the times, that everything and all things are connected, right? So that would mean that I am everybody and everybody is me as well.
Oh, we're all the field.
So that's what I mean. We're all part of that. And we all are that one thing. Not even that we're part of it. We all are it. So to sit there and think that you're going to go and briefly go into something and think you have an understanding without truly embodying what it means and living it out for yourself or healing yourself, and then go try and to preach it to another person, you're straying away from the point of it exactly. You have to be able to heal yourself. If you are everybody and everybody is you, you're not doing it justice by trying to go and preach it to somebody else. You need to do that work yourself. And therefore, it will show on the other side of everybody else.
Yeah. And you know what? And if you want to live in ignorance, or if you're happy with the state of the world, if you want to go back to your church on Sunday, if you want to go back to your group and go protest or go do whatever it is, and regardless of your intention, it may be good, maybe bad, whatever. If you feel like the state of the world is good and we're fine where we're at, then by all means, let the dead bury the dead. Go ahead and ignore all the facts of where this is all going to lead, and the real understandings and deep wisdom that was given to you by your Lord Jesus Christ or your Buddha or your Krishna or whatever other gods, and all the wisdom hiding in plain sight in your religions. If you feel like you are comfortable, then I don't smite you, I don't judge you. You want to go back to that, and you are happy with the state of the world, and you think that Someone's going to come back and do the work for you and save you, for you just, eating fucking shit all week and drinking and judging other people and arguing people on social media, and you could just go to your place on Sunday and get forgiveness for it, and you think someone's going to come back and save you for that, then by all means. But we're here to really help the matter of waking people up, and not in the woke sense. I don't even like saying that anymore. They've destroyed that. But to be aware and to understand where all of this stuff really is leading us to. And it's up to you. It's in your hands. It's not about judgment. We don't judge. We love everybody. We appreciate everybody and what they believe in and what they want to do with their lives. Yeah. We're here to help heal the world and ourselves through all of this, and through talking about it and allowing ourselves to talk about it without putting, a dunce head out and going sitting in the corner and separating ourselves from everybody else.
Yeah. We're not just also sitting here and doing this to be like, oh, podcast and talk to everybody and all that stuff too. We are ourselves doing this as a form of our own lifestyle, and to be the student and the teacher at the same time, and to sit there and be able to, the same way we're saying about working on yourselves, we're working on ourselves. We're coming into more of an understanding and awareness of ourselves, and being able to apply this to our own lives and practice this in our own lives. If we weren't, then we'd literally be contradicting ourselves. But that's the whole point, is to be able to, if you're going to go into this information, if you're going to be a truth seeker, if you're going to be able to, go into scriptures or the wisdom or whatever you want to say, it has to be applicable to you. You have to apply it to yourself as well. Don't just try to apply it to everything externally outside of you, your neighbor. But that's the other thing too that bothers me. There's a lot of people that are these social justice warriors that want to sit there and be about right activism, the rights activism and all that stuff. But meantime, some of them, not going to say all of them, but some of them fail to even have that they want to have compassion for whatever other people in the world. Oh, well, it's a human right to not be homeless. It's a human right to allow immigrants in and do this and stuff like that. But meantime, they don't even show that same compassion to their own friends and family a lot of times. And they don't even work to establish a connection with their family, but they're trying to establish a connection with the outer world.
And you know what it is?
It's hypocritical.
Well, right. And that it's actually a state in psychology. It's called projection, where people are actually projecting what it is they actually are onto other people. The people that are crying racism and stuff like that, or whatever, transgender, whatever topic sensitive, and they're saying they have this certain, a lot of them, you could look up projection, where they're actually the ones doing the thing they actually claim to hate or they're against. And it's something that it shows a lot about the person. And right, like they're not helping the issue or whatever, they're causing the stir up and they're causing the problems, and they're the ones that actually need the most work.
Yeah.
It's not the people that are, sitting back trying to really figure things out and allow things. If you don't want to, take a needle, right? If you don't want to do so, if like whatever it is that you don't feel uncomfortable with, just because some people don't agree with it, it doesn't mean that we have to start a war over it or that whatever. You don't have to project your titles and your names onto those other people. It's about understanding where they're really coming from, respecting the fact that everyone is a sovereign human being.
Mm-hmm. It's that same sense of that whole thing of wanting to talk about forgiveness and forgiveness of others, forgiveness of yourself. But there's also people that want to talk about forgiveness of others, but don't even forgive themselves. And there's also people that talk about forgiveness of certain things, and people, especially more so in maybe more so the religious sense, that they talk about forgiveness of your enemies and everything and stuff like that. But there's certain, not everybody once again, but there's certain people in that who will say that and preach those words and try to tell other people that, but meantime, they can't even forgive their own family member. They can't forgive something that their parents had did and something like that, and still constantly project in their own lives. And it's like, that's the whole sense of saying that you can't just be about the words and talk about it and stuff. There needs to be a level of having it resonate within you, having it be a part of your daily routine in your daily life. And not to say that you're going to get it perfectly, not to say you're not going to make mistakes. You're going to. We make mistakes. We realize certain things as well. And there's certain times, but it's having that awareness. As long as you have the awareness and you have the adjustment factor, you're on the right path already then.
Yeah, it goes back in line what I was saying with projection. I heard one of the most fine quotes I've ever heard this was one of the wisest things I've ever heard, was when you're listening to people, you want to understand someone, don't listen to what they say, listen to what they don't say.
Yeah. It's for all the people that want to be in debate about politics or religion or whatever.
Yeah. And it's time to clear it up. I feel like we're both firm in we stand confident in the fact that through all of the stuff we've gathered informationally, this was more of a discussion episode, explaining, especially with all the things that just happened with my father, and I'm moving to Florida next week. Plenty of things going on. And we didn't want to go and talk about an alien race or our genetics. We wanted to talk about where it is this podcast is going to head, and where our minds are at, and what we feel like is important to talk about to help the world and to help you guys and to help ourselves and to help heal whatever it is. There's no animosity here, or there's no selfish intentions of trying to gain views and followers or whatever. And I feel like what we talk about, it will be a challenge to gain views and stuff like that from people and attention, because it's a world of paradigms and it's a world of beliefs. And it's also a sensitive world. Yeah. And any help that we get from anybody who ends up making it through all these episodes, we appreciate anything, one, for listening, but any help and spreading the word that, our intentions at this point. We're completely blatant and honest. We're out in the open saying that this is our goal. It's clearing up all of the things that separate us. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. That's it. And like we said, I just want to say one thing too, as far as for those that have, I have noticed that there are consistent listeners of this podcast. And I do want to address those people specifically, like those people that have consistently been there and have been watching and have been following, whether they follow even our social media page. We have a serious love and appreciation for you, and definitely see that there's something that resonates with you. And honestly, me personally, myself, like I would love to personally have a conversation with you, personally be able to connect with you, because we really do appreciate your support and understanding and all of that. But also just to, like we said, cool, we've talked about certain things and hidden truths and meanings and everything and stuff. And we will continue that. Yes, and we'll continue that. But it's the whole point of being able to be more so effective in people's more relevant lives today as well. For them to not feel so alone in it. And that's the thing. If you felt alone or you felt in despair or down and stuff, that's part of this too, is to help you not feel so alone and feel like you have an outlet or feel like you have somebody as well. And I want to say personally that I just want to connect with you. And if you feel compelled to, where to reach us, how to. And for anybody else listening too, our email is, I would like it to be more so, I'd like to hear it from an email. This way it allows you to be able to say what you want to say and keep it private as well. And email us, the Daily Transcendence @gmail.com. Email us. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to recognize you as well as a listener. And, it's also, I've been thinking about trying to put something together, to be able to show our appreciation as well for those who have been us on, pretty much this whole time on this journey, and those who are even just starting. So, what to do. Yeah. It speaks for both of us. I'm the same way. As soon as obviously I'm going through a little bit of a grieving process, and actually could use some love, really. And on top of that, I am moving to Florida. I have a big shift coming up. We're pretty much in the middle of it right now. I got to pack up this weekend. I got to move my whole studio. I got to, I've lived here almost my whole life, and I'm going to a new environment. And then the world's in shambles and in chaos. Me and Gio have to readjust how we're doing the podcast. We're supposed to have big guests on soon, and we could use some love. We can use some connection, and that's the whole point of this. We do this for you as much as we do this for us. And this is how I think in the new age, connections will happen. And it's really, filtering out what isn't you and understanding what you really are. And by doing that, you'll attract the exact group of people, the right people in the right circumstances, the right locations, everything that you need will come to you as soon as you are in tune. God will give you things when you are direct. This is where you need your ego and you need your identity. You need to, you're not going to manifest, for all those manifestors out there, you're not going to manifest the life that you want if you're not completely genuine and in touch with yourself and obviously in touch with nature and the world. And everyone wants to go manifest money and things like that, but it's like, no, it's about being in touch with yourself first, because then you'll get it, because you'll be vibrating at the most authentic and powerful frequency that you're even capable of. You'll be your highest self. When people use these terms like higher self and all that, all it really means is you're just so in touch with your own soul and what it is that you're really here for, is that you're vibrating high. You're your highest self. And by doing that, things will come to you quicker. So all this law of attraction nonsense and all these people talking about you can get whatever you want, you can manifest everything as you pushed out. Yeah, well, look, bonehead, you have to know who you are first. You can't just go tell people to go, because they're going to be trying to manifest things that aren't them. They will never get it. And then you're going to push people away. So it's like we're here to help you discover yourself, and us, we're discovering ourselves in the midst of all of it.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful.
That's why we say we want to hear from you. Be open, be honest. We're two open guys, and we want to hear what is it that we can do for you? What do you want to hear from us or us have, whatever it may be? Tell us, talk to us. That's part of all this.
Yeah. And eventually we want to do live streams and have people, contact us, in real time and on a live public stream, like that'll eventually happen. We're going to get to that point.
Yeah.
So it's right now, email us, contact us on all social media. You can do the Instagram, you can do Twitter, Patreon, email, whatever it is you want, whatever you feel most comfortable with. But whether it's you want to ask us a question personally, if you want something that if there's a topic that you want us to really talk about, obviously we're pretty we're a straight shot right now with what we do want to go into, but it's not really like that though. We, our thing is we want to do this podcast intuitionally. Yeah. What's important this week? But if there's something that we find a viewer or listener is they're bringing up something and it does hit an intuitive spot in us, we will talk about it and we'll find it, if we find relevance.
Yeah. And that's the other thing, just doing more so, if that's something, and being able to hear from our listeners and all that, that'll give us the ability to set something up, to have more of a personal discussion, or to create more of a personal content to you, the listener, from hearing from you, and to figure stuff out like that. So that's why we say support us and reach out to us so we can give that back to you as well. So thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Yep. That'll be it for now. Episode 16. It was a special one. Like I said, I'm doing all right with my personal situation. I'm moving next week. Papa's gone, but he's here in spirit. Getting through the grieving process actually pretty decently. I'm just glad he's not suffering. My dad's side had quite the background with depression, and it actually, it's funny. Darkness sometimes, or most of the time, leads to light. Through my depression and watching other people suffer around me, living in the undercurrents of suffering and stuff like that. It led me to this. Pain is the best teacher, and it's about facing yourself and facing everything head on, and not trying to use some external process or thing or person or group to run away from that. If I was telling Gio, if I was back in my hardcore Catholic Christian, because I was kind of like both. We had my family split. That if I was back in that, I didn't have this understanding and knowing that there's this deeper truth and deeper path in life, that I don't know how much I would have handled it well. So this information is enlightening. These discussions are enlightening. It's not about being completely right or speaking the exact truth, but it's about opening up the doors of the mind and the doors to the soul of all of us, and understanding our connection and understanding things deeper. And in remembrance of Pop, I'm going to make sure that we accomplish this. And I know that there's plenty of other people that experience or are going to experience or have experienced what I am going through. Yeah. And it's not the most enjoyable, but with having a lack of faith or belief or understanding, this can be detrimental to someone. And we feel it's our duty to really get, clear up the air and get in touch with everyone and create a network and connection so we can all feel at home.
Yeah, definitely. Because there's a lot of people, like you just said, there's people dealing with similar things or even just depression or anxiety or all types of things, and finding it hard to cope with these things. And I think this way of discussing things and these understandings can potentially help people in those circumstances. That's why we say reach out. Never be afraid to reach out to us. You know, you maybe not want to reach out to certain people, or maybe just listening helps. But either way, that's why we want to get more real with what we're talking about. We want to get more personal through even ourselves, and be transparent with ourselves and our experiences and things that we've had happen and occurred to us, and how we've coped negatively, how we've coped in more of an effective, positive way as well. So that's where this is going, you know, including a lot of the truth, meaning and stuff. A lot of that will come up, and a lot of that will be specified as well.
Big part of it.
Yes, it's definitely a big part of it and stuff. But as this is more of, like you said, an intuitive thing, and really feeling based, and really being able to just be that authentic, genuine way, and to bring that to everybody as well. And network, create that community, create that foundation as well.
Yes, sir. Perfectly said.
Yeah. So until next time, everybody.